Hello, this is PubShorts episode 17. Don't look back in anger at AI watermarks. My name is Dr. KK. I'm the innovation officer at Trinka and Inago. And I have with me Tony. Tony, hi.
Hey, KK. I didn't think Noel Gallagher had that particular use in mind when he wrote the song, but another good selection.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Tony, briefly explain who you are, what brings you here, and what are Inago and Trinka.
Well, this is what episode 17 of PubShots. I'm Tony O'Rourke. I'm the vice president responsible for relationships with in publishing and in the academic space, anyway.
Wait, I think Tony froze.
We have some technical issues here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Here
I'm back.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I look after some commercialization of our AI products.
All right. So I believe you have explained what PubShots is. If suppose people want to know more about Inago or Trinka, where can they find it, Tony?
Yeah, sure. So Trinka.
Oops, I think we have had technical.
We are having some technical difficulties today. Yeah. Something pretty on my end as well.
Yeah.
Or you can find Inago at inago.com, and you can find either KK or I on LinkedIn.
All right. So Tony, we
on Blue Sky now.
Blue Sky. We'll talk about Blue Sky, which is what the episode is titled after. Don't look back in anger. I mean, not really, right? Blue Sky is another. Sorry. That was my bad. But let's start talking about the hottest stories from the field of academia and publishing and AI. So let's start talking about the first story, Tony. So our story is titled is using AI tools, innovation or exploitation, 3 ways to think about it. This is published in The Conversation. So this article states basically that AI could profoundly reshape industries, presenting both opportunities and ethical concerns. The article encourages rethinking how creativity is valued alongside technological advancement. And Tony, this is the cool thing that I wanted to discuss with you. It discusses 3 philosophical perspectives on AI: deontological ethics, consequentialism, and virtue ethics. So I'm going to pause here and ask you, what did you find this article interesting?
The first thing I had to do was to understand what deontology was, and so I looked it up, and I understand that deontology is another word for saying duty-based ethics, a theory that judges the morality of an action based on the action itself, rather than the consequences. I'd honestly never come across that term before.
Yeah, so if even I didn't, to be fair. And so the way that I look at it, each of these relatively complex concept has a relatively plain language sort of an explanation. So rights and duties, you can use it like that. And so this deontological ethics examines AI's impact on creative ownership and fundamental rights. And the consequentialism, which basically evaluates the outcomes and the consequences of AI in terms of broader societal and professional impacts. And the last one, virtue ethics, which is further down below. I think it explores. It is called virtue ethics, but it can be defined as character and integrity. It explores professional judgment and ethical values in the AI era. So altogether, it was new, and I love to explore the other philosophical aspects of the impact of AI in publishing. So Tony, what are your takeaways after you've read this article?
Reading this article, it struck me that we hear me.
Go on. There was a break, but
yeah. No, we seem to be having some rather strange technical issues today. It was, the fact that AI is being used, how it's being used, its impact on society and its impact on the creative arts. And actually, I found out an interesting thing outside of the scientific publishing space, that some of my favorite artists are now using AI tools to help them to write new songs or create new pieces of work.
Well, that's a way forward, Tony, as in people who are not choosing to improve their workflows with AI will be left behind. That is a consensus. So it would apply to
I think it can create, it will certain barriers, I think, moving forward. But I think we're still trying to understand, exactly the best way it should be used in those workflows.
Right. So I'm moving on to the next topic. So apologies for listeners and viewers because we've had some technical difficulties at my end as well as Tony's end. So if there are some like downtimes for
Like
the stream and
a
everything.
perfect storm of technical rubbish.
Right. So let's move on to the next story. It is from Nature. It is titled "Virtual Lab Powered by AI Scientists Supercharges Biomedical Research." We have talked about this. I think AI scientist is another sort of a version of this. So this article from Nature. It's about a virtual lab that uses AI to boost biomedical research. It mentions AI scientists collaborating with humans to design antibody fragments. These fragments can bind to the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and the AI system speeds up the research process significantly. The study is part of a broader effort to integrate AI in interdisciplinary research, Tony, and there is excitement about the potential of AI in various scientific fields. I mean, this is just yet another AI story, but at the same time, interdisciplinarity brought my attention to the article. Your thoughts on it, Tony?
My thoughts are, I think they've already identified a number of directly useful ways in which AI tools can be used, and biomedical and that very large number crunching type research that has to be done can be done relatively well using these AI.
Okay, Tony, I'm going to take a short, like 10-second thing to switch my internet service provider. Maybe it is at my end. So the stream will now go to the default stream start. Just a couple of 10
We'll
seconds.
be right back.
Yeah, we'll
We'll
be
be
right
right
back.
back.
Yeah. So we are back. Apologies for the brief interruption. We have had technical difficulties. So Tony, we were talking about interdisciplinary AI and the impact. So you had some thoughts on this. I might have missed it. So could you repeat yourself?
No, I was just saying that I think we've already discussed how there are good uses for some of these big AI resources, particularly into the biomedical space, and I think there's a very positive use of these tools.
Yeah, the one point that I want to reiterate is that this article also focuses or stresses on the fact that human oversight remains
Yeah,
crucial in
yeah,
these collaborations.
absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and human AI collaboration is seen as a new paradigm. So
But
that's
I mean, I do wonder the point at which there's going to be that transition from human oversight to pure. We now trust the AI. Let's just let the AI get on with it, which is a bit of a broad. We're a long way from that, but it's inevitable
right, right.
in areas.
All right, I'm moving on to the next story we have. This is what we were talking about, Blue Sky. We briefly discussed this in our pre-show production meetings, Tony.
Yeah.
So this is a story published by Altmetric. Altmetric, the story is titled Altmetric adds Blue Sky social media as a research attention source. So for somebody who's new to Altmetric, how would you define an attention source, Tony?
Oh, first of all, does everyone know what Altmetric or who Altmetric are or is?
You can start with that.
In summary, and I'm probably not the best person to describe who they are, but Altmetrics provides an alternative way of measuring the performance, citation performance, the researcher. It creates something called the Altmetric Donuts, I think it's called, or the Altmetric Ring.
Yeah, this
is how an author or a paper is doing. And it's interesting that they've extended their impact measurement service to include a service like Blue Sky, which is showing to be increasingly popular.
Yeah, so as Tony mentioned, alternative sort of metrics from different sources. So this is one such attention source. So among several social media channels, so we've added Altmetric as an attention source. That is the basic idea here. And so
I mean, it's such an important thing as well. We think in lots of the research assessment frameworks that take place worldwide.
Right.
It's not just how many papers have you published, and how successful has your research been, but what sort of impact has the
Mm-hmm.
paper had on society, on your peer group, in your research area, and they're all doing a fine job in terms of providing metrics that will help the research organisation, the funder, understand what that impact.
Right. So, why we are talking about this is because a couple of weeks ago there was a story about researchers being sort of motivated to leave Twitter or X as is and move to Blue Sky, and Blue Sky has become more of a popular social media in the context of academic research. So, Blue
Yeah,
Sky currently has about 23 million users, and it's popular
wow,
among research professionals. And the altmetric data that is being tracked, and the results appear in altmetric badges, as well as in scores and the explorer. These are different ways in which you could find out more about the altmetric information. And tracking includes posts, reposts, and quotes of research links. This is very important. And as per the article, there are about 400,000 mentions of research on Blue Sky so far. So, Tony, I have created a Blue Sky account just to explore this. Have you had a chance to create it so far?
I have created a Blue Sky account
Okay.
about 10 minutes ago. In fact, Kanki.
All right, all right. Maybe we can talk about how. I mean,
Yeah,
I found it
after I've
difficult.
used it.
Yeah, I found it difficult to set up my feeds and everything, and I'm still sort of working my way through it. Anyway, so Tony, my main question to you about this article was that is it sort of the beginning of the end for Twitter or X in terms of research and academia?
Oh, I don't think so. I think there's so much support behind X that it will continue, and it will continue in a big way. It's just too embedded, I think, in social media. I mean, who knows? Something fundamental might change, but I can't see it happening in the short term.
Right. So, moving on to the second last main story that we have. This story is published in as a quantitative science article. I think it's called it's titled "The Strain on Scientific Publishing." It's an interesting article, Tony. The number of scientific articles has skyrocketed. We have talked about
Yeah,
it in this stream or the podcast several times, but it's far outpacing the growth of academicians or academics, as Tony, you and I talked about the quirks of Indian English. This increases or this adds to individual researchers' workload, and this is termed the strain on scientific publishing. Now,
mm,
the cool thing that I got out of this is that most of the extra publishing output is coming through special issues offered by
yeah,
some publishers,
yeah.
and the paper suggests that some metrics could help in finding the solution to the overall unsustainable growth, and suggests that special issues need to be addressed in a separate way. And what are your thoughts on this? Do you think special issues are causing this problem?
I think I don't. First of all, I don't think there's a problem. I think what's happening today is that electronic publishing and the world we're in makes it easier to be able to bring good research to the world. I think the part of the problem lies in the fact there aren't good tools available that will allow the researcher to be able to screen exactly what he or she needs to see.
Right.
In effect, or maybe they exist, but they're not as widely available as they should be. We don't want to. I don't think anyone in the world wants to discourage research and research communication, but there has to be better ways of identifying where these tools are. I mean, I've worked with publishers who've had create special issues for some of their journals, and the authors love it.
Mm-hmm.
The reviewers love it because they're able to focus. So no, I don't think special issues in themselves are a necessarily bad thing. I know there's been some criticism around the way certain publishers have historically used special issues to richly inflate maybe volume. I won't go into detail who they are, but I think everyone knows who they are.
Yeah, so this is a PDF I'm
I think
sharing.
the issue is more around
Yeah.
how that content is accessible.
Yeah, so Tony, I'm sharing, I think a bar chart on the ratio between the papers published in regular articles and special issues, and you can see that some publishers and journals have higher special issue publication numbers, and probably this is a trend, and it is an interesting thing to look at least, and to understand, especially the year-on-year growth. So that's one interesting thing. I personally believe that special issues might be diluting in the sense that there is too much output and we need quality assurance. So I partially.
I
Mm.
I have to disagree. Really, I
Yes.
mean, I think it's at the end of the day, it's not my task, not your task to
Right.
determine, what is good and bad quality. It's up to the researcher to be able to identify themselves and whether that content is going to support their research.
Right. Right.
Um, I think that the tools lie. It's more of a fundamental problem in terms of how can the researcher access that content and decide for themselves.
Right. Okay, Tony, the final main article that we have is another news story, I suppose. It is titled "Free Counter Membership." Counter is a noun in this case. Counter membership in research for live countries. So, counter metrics is an alternative type of metrics. It offers. It's basically, I think, it gives you statistics on the usage across libraries of publications and books and
Yeah,
periodicals,
that's
etc.
right. That's
Right,
right. Yeah,
and it offers free memberships to libraries and publishers in Research for Life countries. Now, Research for Life is a global initiative that provides free or low cost access to scientific research for institutions in low and middle income countries, covering
yeah,
critical fields like health, agriculture, and environmental science to different programs. So, I believe it's a very good initiative. Now,
yeah,
Countermetrics creates a universal standard for tracking how academic resources are used online, allowing libraries to compare usage data. Now, this is again important because libraries, as of now, I guess most researchers access research papers through library subscription, and that's a lot of money that it has to be, put in for in terms of budgets and everything. And India just released a new subscription plan. So, Tony, overall, what do you think about this news story, and how does it affect things in the future?
yeah. I think this is another good example how when the publishing industry works together, it creates it tries to level the playing field, to use a football expression, or rugby. Historically, libraries and institutions in developing countries, for want of a better term, in low and middle income countries, were finding it increasingly difficult to access and keep up to date with scientific content. So organizations like Agora, Hinar, Search for Life was created to remove or to level out that inequity.
Mm.
And now, we're having a conversation now where these institutions have access to so much content, they need ways to be able to identify which content's being used, which is great. I think it's a really positive thing. And applause to the Counter making it available to those institutions in those countries.
Excellent, Tony. So we are moving on to the quick hits. The article that we titled the episode over. This is the article. It is a Nature correspondence article titled "Don't Let Watermarks Stigmatize AI Generated Research Content." So I'll just quickly read my notes. So this is a letter to the editor of from Nature. It discusses the impact of watermarking. We have talked about, if you remember, Tony, that there are ways in which you can watermark. Google's DeepMind has a new technique which prevents some amount of, I would say, paraphrasing level artifacts to be picked up. Still, in the sense, you cannot get away with just simply putting in AI content without stating that you have used AI for it. Anyway, so this the writer's argument is that watermarking can label content as pure or and tainted, and these the binaries, and that is a, like, I don't know, decade, century, millennium long argument whether we should label things as pure or tainted, and this might create a divide between human and AI generated research. So, Tony, what do you think? As in, watermarking is the perspective of the author of this article. Do you agree with that?
Um, I agree with the fact I mean, I think anything that highlights the use of AI is good, and that's fine. It works. It has its stands in its own merits. Um, as the author also says, it's kind of what they're saying here is it's a bit binary. It's either a yes or a no. It's either on or off. And I think we can't categorize all content in the same way. Some human written content is pretty bad. Some AI content that's generated can be pretty good. I think it's very difficult to categorize all in the same way. But again, I think it's another good way of being able to identify how these tools are being used. And most publishers are asking authors to declare the use of AI in their research.
Yeah, so there are two.
So it shouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah, there are two authors I just noticed. It's a duo who has that has written the article, and they caution against stigmatizing AI content. And there, I think the basic stance is that, look, no matter where the content is from, AI generated, human generated, if the content is of value, then the research should still shine and rise up. That's the idea. I think that's what everybody
Yeah,
wants. But you want to also state in the article that if suppose you have used AI, that you have used AI, basically
And I think
transparency.
we talked about in another article, that maybe those kind of acknowledgement statements need to be developed as well.
Yes,
How
yes,
much of the content was written by AI? Which sections of the content was written by AI?
right.
How in proportion to the total content, how much of the paper was generated by AI? And those sort of statistics, I think, will also help
Right.
the user, the reader.
Okay, Tony, final quick hit. Why the word scientist was controversial 100 years ago? So it's basically 100 years ago. The controversy was that it was linguistically awkward apparently, and at the time the scientists were under pressure to refine their communication style. I think that scientists are still finding it difficult to refine their communication style, and the term was seen as a shibboleth. I think it's a if what is it? What is the etymology of shibboleth? I don't remember. Uh,
It's something
Yiddish.
that distinguishes insiders.
Yes, it's a Yiddish word, I suppose. It has to be.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is a Yiddish word. Yes,
Yes.
it's a
Yeah. So, and that word shibboleth is a word to represent insiders. So insiders is again not looked upon in a positive light, and the alternatives proposed were man of science, which is again I would say it has a sexist slant. So there were controversies and scientists stuck, but still we are talking about it. I feel that scientist as that word still has some amount of stigma, and we have talked about how the perception of the public is in terms of science and research. So your thoughts on it overall?
Uh, well, first of all, I hadn't realised there was any kind of stigma against the word scientist. What this article is a look back at the anniversary of a paper which Nature published back in the 1920s, I think,
Right.
which discussed this. But the actual topic,
Mm-hmm.
the history of the word scientist goes back a lot further. I think, there was an article published in the 1830s, for example, which first mentions the word scientist. And there was really kind of a whole debate taking place between then and 1920s, 1930s about how that word should be used.
Well, that brings us, Tony, to the end of our 17th episode of PubShorts titled "Don't Look Back in Anger" at AI Watermarks. So, Tony, we already have a musical reference. Do you have anything interesting happening in your musical life to share?
No, my latest acquisition I can happily share is I'm a big fan of Christmas music, and I'm a big fan of the rock group Jethro Tull, and I just recently purchased this, which is the Jethro Tull Christmas album, which is their rendition of Christmas classics.
Have you had a chance to listen to it yet?
No, brand new, only arrived today.
Okay, okay. So, Tony, if somebody is interested in knowing more about you and your work, where can they find you?
So you can contact me at tony@nago.com, or I'm on LinkedIn. Just look for Tony.O'Rourke at LinkedIn. And I've just joined Blue Sky. As soon as I can remember my Blue Sky tag, I'll let you know. On KK also on LinkedIn and at inago.com.
Right, and if you're interested in finding more about Trinka, Inago, or PubShot, just search for these terms on social media. We are across the social media platforms, even on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
Soon, at least I will be on Blue Sky.
Yeah.
And if you have any thoughts on the stuff that we talk about on the content, or you would like us to cover a particular story, please write to us and let us know.
Yeah.
And we'll be very happy.
And I say apologies again for the technical issues that we've had during this episode of Web PubShots, and I would look forward to hearing from you.
Yes, and it's been 17 episodes, and this has been the one episode where we had multiple technical issues. But that's okay, Tony. We are still talking. We are still live, so everything is fine. So until, Tony, the next time, when probably later this week, this is Dr. KK signing off for PubShots. Episode 17, Don't Look Back in Anger at AI Watermarks. On behalf of everyone, including Tony, I'll say bye, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.